Hi, I'm Marianne Maria, and I am bringing you this video from my messy office. I'm trying this webcam because my son is at school. He normally helps me with this, and the last time he did it was a sex scene, and I think I scarred the boy for life. Anyway, but he's at school. He's tooling around with his friends in a car somewhere, because I know that his friends have senior license and he's got a permit, so hence the gray hair in my head. Anyway, any parent of a teenager knows, and that's why I started sharing the conversations with my teenagers with you, because it doesn't matter where you come from or how you raise them, it's all the same. Anyway, so I have a new release. It is Sass in the City. It is book 3 in the Catamount Shifter series, which is a series within a series for Millie Taden's Sassy Ever After Kindle World exclusive. So this one features Lael. She is our favorite witch from the original, and she features very prominently in all of my series. So I decided to give her her own story. In fact, Millie had wanted to do it herself, but when I posed the question to her, could I give Lael a series, she was just like, yeah, sure, I love you, so go ahead, run with it, and she loves it. She absolutely loves it, so I'm really glad. Anyway, Lael and Jewel and Ethan, which you might remember, Jewel and Ethan are from Sassmaster, which is book 1. They are together, and the 3 of them are heading to Salem, Massachusetts for a witches recognition. It's a solstice festival where they are going to recognize real witches, along with the falsely accused as well as the accusers from the original witch trials, and which is kind of a fiction. It's a fictional do. It's not a real event, but the witches memorial is real. It's in Salem. It's the Salem witch trials memorial for all of the people, all the victims who were killed in the hysteria. It's fabulous. If you get a chance to go to Salem, you should. It's great. I'm actually going to be there on Memorial Day weekend with my family, so I'm looking forward to seeing it again. It's been quite a while since I've seen it. Anyway, but they are headed north with a stopover in New York City, so hence Sass in the City. And of course, all 3 books are second chance romances. So who doesn't like a second chance in life, right? So, and especially when it comes to romance, because sometimes we're stupid and we let people go when we shouldn't, and then sometimes we're stupid and we keep people when we should let them go. Anyway, it's a conundrum, but hey, it's human. And here is Sass in the City, and let me get to the page, which I should have done before I started doing this. Okay, here we go. A shower was just the ticket. Refreshed, Lael slipped a soft cotton maxi dress over her damp head and skimmed her hands down her soft curves. She smoothed the clingy fabric over her waist to her full hips and turned in the mirror, fluffing her rainbow-colored pixie-cut hair. The subtle hues highlighted the kiss of shimmer on her cheekbones, and she smiled to herself. Eat your heart out, Tinkerbell. She stopped with her fingers still in her hair. Tink, she murmured. The only person to ever call her Tink and get away with it was long gone from her life. Would he like the colors in her short blonde hair, or would he give her that same sexy, crooked smile before slanting his lips over hers when she argued a point too much? With a sigh, she squashed the recollection. This was Jewel's fault. All her talk of hookups, past and present. She had too much going for her now to dredge up past disappointments. Still, 10 years. That's how long it had been since she was decently kissed. Truly good and kissed. Not to mention other things. She looked at herself in the mirror again. Time hadn't registered much on her face in the past decade, but she'd withdrawn in other ways. No one would match the reserved, intuitive witch they knew with the impetuous hellcat she once was. Not even Jewel. Tyr, her father, was the only one who knew, and he also knew the reason behind the change. Jet. Jet used to laugh at her feisty side, or as he used to call it, her pixie fire, and now he was the one plaguing her memories. the one she measured every other man against. Until now. Maybe it was time for a little uninhibited adventure. She wasn't meeting Jewel and Ethan until this evening, which gave her all afternoon to coax her carefree side out of mothballs. For the longest time she lived with her ears open and her mouth shut, but moving to Blue Creek was an experiment in being spontaneous and free. It was where she met the Wolf Clan, especially Ellie, and then Jewel. Helping them had helped her in turn. She found herself again. Lael smiled at her reflection. Her hair and makeup said rebel, but it was more armor than advertisement. Rainbow colors masked the dulled remains of a disappointed heart. Jewel was right. It was time for a little happy. She slipped her feet into her high-heeled flip-flop wedges and grabbed her purse before opening the hotel door to head out. What better place to start than New York City? Downtown beckoned with its eclectic mix. Her stomach growled. Food first, exploring after. The elevator dinged and the door slid open. Digging in her purse, Lael walked from the lift, only to jerk to a stop just short of a collision. She blinked at the man standing front and center of the doors, recognition hitting her in her face like a Mack truck. He was older, leaner, and more masculine than she remembered. But there was no question. His mouth curved into the same sexy smile that melted her all those years ago. Hello, Tink. Her lips parted, but no sound left her mouth. Other people left the elevator and pushed past as she stepped out of the way, still speechless. I know we haven't seen each other in a while, but you could manage a simple hello. She closed her mouth and swallowed. Hello, Jet. His voice sent a shiver through her gut. Damn, he was even more gorgeous than she remembered. Time had been good to him, but then again, most men got better looking with age. Mother Nature's ultimate bitch slap to her own kind. The lift dinged again, but Jet didn't move from his spot. I'm stunned to see you, Tink. Lael nodded, swallowing again to find her voice. Likewise. What are you doing here? He smirked, and his deep brown eyes twinkled with the same mischief, only now there were tiny crinkles at the corners of his gorgeous eyes that added to his rugged, handsome look. I live here. And you? Her brows nodded. Here? The minute the question left her mouth, she regretted how stupid it sounded. His smirk slid into a crooked, boyish grin. Well, not here, exactly, no. She exhaled, shaking her head. Of course you don't live in the hotel. I meant New York. You live in the city? Jet shook his head. New England, actually. Not far from Boston. I'm staying at the hotel. He glanced toward the elevators. I was heading up to my room before checking out. I'm supposed to be headed to the coast later tonight. She nodded. I'm here with friends. Just one night. Funny, though. We're heading to your neck of the woods tomorrow. Salem. For the Witch Memorial. She cringed at the shadow that crossed his face. Jet, I'm sorry. He shook his head. Don't be. Water under the bridge. Still, I didn't think, and I'm sorry. His eyes found hers and locked. 10 years, Tink. For me, it seems like yesterday. He reached out and ran his knuckle over her bare arm. You haven't changed a bit. With a smile, he gave a chin pop toward her hair. I like the colors. They fit you. The simple touch sent shivers across her nerve endings with an electric punch to her lower belly. Between the skim of his fingers on her skin and the sound of his deep, rich voice, her panties dampened and her throat went dry. She pulled her arm away, lifting it to a pixie cut. It's still short and still basically blonde, but yeah, I like the colors too. His dark eyes leveled on hers and seemed to fleck gold, and his nostrils flared ever so slightly. Do you still get premonitions? She lifted one shoulder and let it drop. Sometimes. Lately my talents have been more about the past, but more and more I get images of what's coming down the pike. Most times the two are intertwined in how one affects the other. I've gotten really good at reading auras, too. I can peel away veiled realities to find the truth buried underneath. Wow. I guess Mariette was right when she said you were destined for things greater than me. Lael's mouth dropped open again. She was wrong, Jet. He looked at her. Maybe. But we'll never know, will we? Memories collided. You're leaving? Stunned, Lael sat on the edge of the bed. I have to. What do you mean you have to? She turned, anger flushing her cheeks. It's Mariette, isn't it? He nodded. She found out my mother was a shifter. You know how she feels about half-bloods in her school. Lael squashed the rest of the memory. 10 years. That's how long it had been since she heard his name spoken out loud. Yeah, but he's been alive and well and living in your head for that long, too. Whatever. Jet Ellis was her past, and that was where he belonged. You sure about that? Lael dismissed her inner sparring and pulled her eyes from his, giving the closed elevator doors a quick glance. She was not having this conversation standing in the hotel lobby. Well, don't let me keep you. She moved to press the up button, but Jet reached for her wrist. Do you still believe things are meant to be? Her eyes found his. Not so much anymore. He nodded, his thumb sliding over her tender skin. I didn't either. Not for a long time. But seeing you here now, it can't just be coincidence. Of course it can. Jet shook his head. You don't believe that, Lael. You forget I'm a shifter. I can smell what crashing into me is doing to you, and to be honest, I feel it too. She pulled her arm back. I have no idea what you're talking about. He smirked, dropping his hand from her wrist. You sure about that, Tink? See? He senses it too. Lael lifted her chin. Absolutely. And don't call me Tink. I'm not a teenager anymore, Jet. He nodded, letting his eyes sweep her lush curves. You're right. You've grown into a stunning woman, Lael. Mollified, she softened her gaze. I don't know about stunning, but thank you for the compliment. It's the truth. His eyes held hers for a moment before he tilted his head, thinking. I have an idea. Jet lifted one hand as if telling her to stay put and then darted around toward the front desk. Lael watched his tall, muscular body turn the corner, and she let out the breath she'd been holding. I'm a shifter. She didn't need to see her talents to guess what side of the supernatural he identified with now. 10 years ago, Jet barely mentioned his mother's family. His father had been the one to push him to follow his warlock roots. The past flooded back again in that instant, and a melancholy feeling of déjà vu passed over her. Before she could recall any more, Jet turned the corner again. Everything okay? She asked. He nodded. That depends on you. Me? How? I extended my night another stay. I don't have to be in California just yet, and since we happen to run into each other... No, Jet, she cut him off, shaking her head. I'm here with friends. With a shrug, he glanced around the lobby. Okay, so introduce me. Lael met the dare in his eyes with a smirk. They're not here right now. I'm meeting them for dinner later. A grin took his lips, and he hooked his fingers into the front pocket of his jeans. It looks like you're out of excuses, so why not spend the day with me? Rolling her eyes, Lael couldn't argue. I don't need an excuse to say no, but I suppose we could just hang out. My question is, why the full court press? You've already rearranged your schedule and appointments, yet you have no idea what I have planned or not. He took a step closer and slipped his hands from his pockets onto her shoulders. Because I want to spend time with you, Lael. After everything that happened, you can't simply crash into me and then expect to walk away. It doesn't work like that. What doesn't work like that? Fate. He reached up and brushed the multicolored fringe from her blue eyes. Dear God, did he have to smell so amazing? Delicious and utterly masculine. Between that and the familiar way he brushed her bangs from her eyes, it was all she could do not to wrap her arms around his neck and kiss him. People milled around in the hotel's marble lobby, and yet it was as if no time had passed, though a decade stood between them. Standing toe-to-toe with his hands on her shoulders, her heart squeezed at how natural it felt, how right. Come on, he murmured, claiming her hand. Let's find a quiet place and have a drink, so we can catch up properly. She shook her head. I came down to explore the city, not sit in a hotel bar. Alrighty then. He folded her arm into his and steered her toward the street-side exit. If it's exploration you want, then that's what you'll get. Jet, wait. Her emotions were giving her whiplash. Damn that inner compass. Not taking no for an answer, he walked her out of the hotel's revolving doors. With a practiced hand, he stepped to the curb and whistled for a taxi. As if on cue, a yellow checkered cab pulled to the side, and he opened the rear passenger door. "Your chariot, my lady," he said, motioning toward the interior. "Ugh, enough already. You're giving me a cavity." Still unsure, Lyle slid across the cracked leather seat and got in after him. What the hell? It was just one day, right? "That's because I'm too sweet to resist," he smirked, closing the taxi door. "Where to?" the cabbie interrupted. "Your call, Tink," Jet shrugged. She pushed her lips to the side, considering. "I really have no idea about Manhattan, so you pick." "Okay," he nodded. "You up for an adventure?" She cocked her head, eyeing him with a smirk. "I don't know, Jet. It's been a while, and I'm not sure I trust that glint in your eye enough for that." "You used to be up for taking risks." "There are a lot of things I used to be up for, Jet. Like I said, it's been a while." Jules' words came back with a fury. Celibacy clogs the channels, Lale, in more ways than just magical. And these days you're bucking for the role of Mother Superior at the convent of the sisters who need to get laid. Jet considered her. Are you okay, Tink? I know it's been 10 years, but you get that same wrinkle between your eyes when you think too much. She had to laugh. I can't believe you remember that. Now it was his turn for a distant moment. You'd be surprised at how much I remember. Maybe Jewel was right. Not about having an anonymous hookup, but about it being time to cut loose for once, and who better with than an old friend? He's more than just a friend, and you know it. She ignored the eager voice in her head. "It's a beautiful day, so I vote Central Park," she replied to the driver. "The park's a big place, lady. Anywhere in particular?" She opened her mouth to reply, but Jet held up his hand. "Get us as close to the Oak Bridge as you can. North entrance is best." The cabbie pulled into traffic, and Lyle looked at Jet. "What's the Oak Bridge?" "It's the main entrance to the Ramble. A little slice of paradise in the heart of the concrete jungle. Acres and acres of wooded trails and streams that feed into a beautiful lake. I try and make time to get there whenever I'm in New York." She chuckled. "Acres? I said I wanted to explore, not get lost." "The Ramble is just a starting point. We have the rest of the day and night." It was on the tip of her tongue to argue that she had other commitments, but she didn't. Not with Jet's thigh pressed against hers as the taxi maneuvered its way through midday traffic. The harmless touch made her knees weak, and she was grateful to be sitting down. The amazing way he smelled and his close proximity sent images long past flooding into her mind, images of him and his hard, lean body above hers, his laughing smile and the way he looked at her all those years ago, the way he looked at her today. What the hell was she thinking? "You want this, and you know it." "No, I don't. Liar. He's the only thing you've ever really wanted, and he's here now, in the flesh." Oh, God, in the absolutely rock-hard, delicious flesh. The cab shot across merging traffic, and as it changed lanes, her body pitched sideways against Jet's chest. He slid his arm around her shoulders, but rather than meet his eyes, she looked out the window. It didn't help. Flashes from the past, present, and God help her, the future, hit her left and right. Maybe Jet was right, and their reunion was more than just a coincidence. So, obviously the story moves from there, but at least now you have a teaser as to their second chance romance. And I hope you like it. I hope you decide to pick it up. And again, thank you all for being such wonderful fans. Love you all. You make it possible for me to do what I love best, and that's take the stories that clog my head and put them on paper for you. Well, virtual paper. Anyway, love you. Bye.